I'm Jane.
And we're SpielMill.
Yep, and this is part 2 of Alhambra Gone Wild, our Mega Box. Alhambra Mega Box and all the expansions, kind of, in the box. There are 43 expansions in Alhambra. We played, actually in the end, we played 39 of them. Now, there's some reasons we didn't play 4 of them. So we'll talk about those as we cover them. In case you didn't realize it in part 1, we've been covering the expansions in the order that they are in the rule book. So if that helps you keep along, you can just follow the rule book in order.
Yep.
So we'll talk about the 4, when it's time to, we'll talk about the 4 expansions we didn't play. I will say that 2 of them we didn't play because we don't appear to have them. And that was because there were 2 versions of the Mega Box, and it's a whole thing. Queen Games did some weird stuff. But in general, we had most of them. And the other 2 we didn't play were more for practical reasons. And some rules clarity issues and 2-player issues and stuff like that. Yep. So, all right.
All right. So, our first expansion that we want to talk about was the Watchtowers expansion.
Yeah.
And these are little triangular pieces that you can add to a building. They're color-coded like the buildings. And you can add them to a corner to create a longer wall. And in fact, they count as 2 wall segments instead of 1.
Yeah, it's a real simple thing. You had to pay for them a little extra. Like, if it was before the first scoring, you had to pay 6. If it was before the second scoring, you had to pay 4. And after the second scoring, you paid 2 on top of the price of a building. And you had to get them at the time you got a building. And then they helped you redesign your Alhambra. I thought they helped your Alhambra look really cool.
They definitely looked really cool. And some of the examples in here are really fancy schmancy. Yeah. Like you could create a whole like corridor basically.
Yeah.
I barely used them. I found them to be less helpful to me and my game style than you did.
Yeah, and I do think at this point we had incorporated so many expansions. I think some of our take on some of these were impacted a little bit because we were incorporating as many as we could. And some of them did better with less involved. Less going on.
I think this is one that had we played with just this, I would have, obviously I would have used it more, but it would have been more interesting and more fun. It's such a minor thing, especially because it's sort of nestled with more complicated expansions that I just ended up not devoting a lot of brain power or game time to them. But I think on their own, they could have been really interesting.
Yeah, that's fair.
The other thing I'll say, and we've talked about this a lot, is that a lot of the expansions sort of address a bottleneck in the game, or something that is, hard to do. So one of those things is creating a long wall or getting points for walls. And there's other expansions that address the wall issue. So this is one of maybe the 3 or 4 that help you create a longer wall or fill in gaps. The other ones fit better with me.
Yeah.
But I think if you were looking for, and that'd be an interesting way to do this too, is like play the 3 different wall expansions back to back, not together, back to back, and just kind of compare them that way.
Obviously, we couldn't play every expansion with every possible combination, so we couldn't test all these out. But I will say that I did use it more, and I really liked the Watchtower expansion. I thought, like I said, it made your Alhambra look kind of cool because it added these angles and stuff.
Yeah.
And but also it was practical, like you said. It helps extend your wall and give you more points. So.
Yep, helps you reshape a little bit. I think also we implemented this after we took out the employees. I don't remember, but there's one like, I don't think they're called employee, but the cards with
staff.
Staff, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Employees, staff.
Yeah. There's one staff member that gives you an extra point for every 3 wall sections you have. That would be a powerful combination.
Yeah, it would be a powerful combo.
And I used that one a lot. That was one of my favorites.
I like that one too. So that not staff. Those aren't staff. Those are characters.
Characters, yeah. Had we played the characters expansion with the Watchtowers, I think I probably would have used them a lot more because it would have fit with my game strategy.
I think we'll talk about the staff. I don't know that we talked about them the first time. It's all blur. But there's an expansion where you did hire staff, but that was different.
Yep.
All right, so next up we have building sites. I don't think either one of us uses a lot, but I did use it a little. What it did is it allowed you to construct a building, and so you could buy it for half price, put it in your Alhambra, which kind of gave you a claim on it. But in order to score for that building, you had to go back and buy it again at full price, based on whatever color token you drew in that dollar or currency. And so you didn't know what currency you'd have to pay for it at full price when you sort of reserved it. And then there was a building under construction in your Alhambra. I love the concept. I think we didn't use it much because paying 1.5 times to get this one building is a lot.
Yeah.
And 2 actions.
And again, I think this would go really well if you were using the bonus buildings where you get the cards, and if you have that one building, you get extra, accounts extra. This would be great for that because you could reserve it a lot cheaper. You wouldn't have to wait till you had the full price. So again, this is one of those expansions that when in the mix that we played it in, it didn't do that much for us. You could certainly use it if you really desperately needed, say, a building with no walls. I always find myself with like one little spot I can put something, and I need a building that has no walls so I can increase the amount of space I can build on. Like, it would work for something like that. It'd be really great for getting you out of a jam like that. And I think it would complement the bonus buildings really well too.
True. So anyway, I liked the expansion. I didn't love it. It's just paying 1.5 times. But like you said, there are situations, and maybe we didn't play with the exact combo of expansions that would have optimized this expansion's use. But again, I think that's maybe a strike on this expansion that it needed that kind of combination. Yeah. So.
Well, I will say one other thing is that in like a 4-player game or with a lot more players, that could also be really helpful if you were trying to maintain your majority. Yeah. Like with us, it's a little bit less of a cutthroat battle to get the color building that you need, but you could use it to, even if you didn't end up scoring it, you could keep it out of somebody else's hands. In
a multiplayer game especially, I think with 4 players, the odds of a building come all the way around. So being able to reserve it and set it aside is worth the 1.5 times pay. So next up, we have the Exchange Certificates expansion. And this is one of many expansions that address the issue of overpaying. And this was not my favorite.
No. No, I found
it was okay.
I liked it less than the coins. So this, you get a little, what do you call that? Board.
A little board.
With holes in it. And when you overpay, let's say I have orange, I'm paying in orange currency and I overpay by 4. I actually get 4 change. So I take the orange
1-for-1
cylinder.
Which is good.
Yep. And I put the orange cylinder on 4, and now I have 4 extra orange to spend. Now you have to spend those all in one go. You can't like break it down and spend 3 one time and 1 the next, sort of, theoretically.
Yeah, but then there was a thing where if you didn't spend it all, you could reallocate it for next time. So you kind of could. I don't know. It was a little bit confusing, and because the rules contradicted themselves in a way. But I did find it. I don't know. Even though the coins were 2-for-1, the change and the exchange certificates were 1-for-1. Whereas, if you paid 10 for a 6 building, you'd get 2 coins, which are both worth 1 each. So it's basically you overspent by 4, but you only get 2 change.
Right.
With this, if you overspent by 4, you would get 4 change in that color, which is great. So why didn't I use this as much? I think it was a little more fiddly and harder to remember. I think having a coin in front of you is easy to spend. You know how money works, how coins work. This was a little different.
Well, also, it was a little restrictive because it was only that one color. With the coins, you could get a couple of different coins in different colors. Now, they were drawn randomly, so you never know what you were going to get. But I felt like they gave you more flexibility.
They do.
Later in the game.
Plus, I might get a coin now. I'm not under any pressure to spend it right away. Whereas with the exchange thing, if I overpay on blue and I have 4 extra blue, but but then I want to overpay an orange. I can't do it with the exchange thing. I lose out on the overpay altogether.
Yep.
Because with the exchange thing, you had to spend that extra blue you had before you could claim like 4 orange.
Right.
So it was kind of limiting in that way.
Yeah. Again, I feel like a lot of these expansions, again, that address, there's multiple different ones that address different stress points. It kind of depends on your play style, like and what feels right to you. I bet some people this would be really useful. And again, it's a 1-to-1 exchange, so that's great. But for us, for some reason, the coins just felt more flexible, and there was less pressure, like you said, to use it right away, because you could sit there on your coins until the end of the game if you wanted to. Whereas this one, you felt like you had to use it quickly so you could pay with surplus again later.
Right. And with the coins, those coins came in handy for certain different things that were useful, where you just needed 1 or 2 change. But I think the exchange certificate was okay. Maybe if it was introduced before the coins, I might feel a little different about it. But
I was thinking that too. That like the first one, like, oh, we get change, this is awesome. And then the second one was like, yeah, we already got change, this just does it differently.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I like I said, I kind of like the change coin better because it always worked. It didn't matter whether or not you'd spent your orange that you got from a previous overbuy. You could always get change and always use change. So I like that.
So the next one is so-called magical buildings.
These were cool.
I loved these.
We played with these to the end. So once we introduced them.
I really liked these. I found them super helpful. And again, they play to my weakness. So what magical buildings are is, let's say you have a white 12 building. It's white, it's 12. It's got 2 walls on it, but you can rotate it. You can position it any different way that you want to position it. So it doesn't have to go in, with the angle in the top right and top and right. You could flip it around so it's the bottom and the left. And that was great for me because I am not quite as spatially adept as you are. And so I really back myself into corners on my Alhambra all the time. And these buildings definitely helped me get out of those jams.
I will say the one thing I thought was weird about this, there were 6 tiles, 1 for each color building. And then it came with 6 loose tiles that were the pictures of the buildings themselves. So that, because you can orient them anyway, this way you could have an upright picture of the building. I feel like that upright picture of the building was totally unnecessary. Like you could have just done unique art on the tile that was like a top view of a circular building. You didn't need to do the whole, I don't know, having an extra component thing, if that makes sense. I found that to be just unnecessarily introducing a fiddly component.
Especially when you start to get to some of the other expansions that also have things that you're putting on your tiles. Man, at some point, you've got an inch worth of things sitting on your tile.
Yeah, and so it just seemed, it wasn't a big deal, but it was just unnecessary. And it was, like you say, later on we introduced more things on the tile, so it was kind of distracting. So anyway, I like the magic buildings a lot too.
I think we'd always play with them. This is one I would just always have in.
It's just 6 tiles. You shuffle back into the thing. I think next time we'll just worry about the orientation tiles, as they call them. So, but yeah, that's it. Now this next one, we did not play. I'm sorry to say, the Medina expansion. The first reason we didn't play it was a little bit because we don't like negative point things. And we still would have played it, except it wasn't clear how to score it for 2 players. So what this was it's 9 tiles that are a Medina building. And they were cool. I mean, they were like different values and 2 to 10. And you could buy them. They didn't really help you with majorities of building types. But if you had to build Medinas. If you didn't, the person who built the least would lose points. And the person who built the second least would lose less points, but still lose points, So it was all based on losing points, which seemed like a weird system. I don't know. But the scoring didn't explain how to score it with 2 players.
Right.
So I was just kind of like, you know what? This doesn't sound good. Let's just skip it.
Yeah. Now, I will say that those buildings could count for some of and I can't remember what we've covered at this point, but the one that gives you something for the number of buildings, like if you've got 4 or 6 value buildings.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The art one. We'll get
Oh, yeah, that it could have, yeah.
Yeah, so it could work towards your final score
Art of the
positively.
Art of the Moors.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could work positively if you in Art of the Moors, and it could help you with your wall. But ultimately,
we did talk about that,
it was just super fiddly, and we don't like negative points. And it just, we'd also at this point had done a lot of expansions. We were just no.
Sorry, I know it's kind of a cop out, but like we just really didn't want to do it, and it wasn't clear how it would score for 2 players. So
yeah, and I think it makes it a little bit more aggressive of a game. So if that's your play style, if you like the aggressive, like I'm gonna beat you and I'm gonna like come in at the last minute and undermine you, then you might really enjoy these. But that is not our style.
Our next one, now this is cool because we're into the designer expansion. So these had named designers who were expansions, and this one was designed by the designer of Alhambra, Dirk Hen, and
Dirk the Jerk.
Not Dirk the Jerk.
Dirk Hen.
This is Nice Dirk. And this is New Building Grounds. And New Building Grounds, I did like this one. This was interesting. You basically you had 10 value buildings, 11 value buildings, 12 value buildings, and 13 value buildings. And they were shuffled, so they could be any type of building, any color. They would change basically what color they were. So you'd shuffle in these basically blank 10, 11, 12, 13 tiles into the pile, into the tower. And then when they came out, if you bought it, you got to choose from 3 choices what color building you wanted it to be. I kind of like that.
I liked it too. I thought it was just another interesting decision space. It gives you some flexibility. Looking at there might be 3 different color buildings out there, a white, a red, and a blue. What do I want to make this? Do I want to go for my aggressive blue majority or try to get in on red? I don't know. I liked it. It was fun. And they have no walls. So again, love those no wall buildings for helping you get a little more flexibility in your Alhambra space.
Sorry, my body's making noises. The Art of the Moors expansion with this was complicated. It had some benefits. You had more 10, 11, 12, 13 buildings to help move your Art of the Moors tiles. But the Art of the Moors combined 12 and 13 buildings because there weren't very many.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you have a bunch.
And there was only 1 available. Everything else, there was at least 2, so you could both get it.
So this gave a huge advantage to whoever got that 12, 13 dial first. So I'm not sure technically these mix well.
Yeah.
So just think about that if you're ever combining those 2 expansions. Because I think that ideally the Art of the Moors combined with this would have a separate 12 and 13 like the other numbers, but they have a combined one and there's only 1, or they'd have 2, and then you could both go for it.
Yeah.
I wish they had 2 and they could add it in when it was appropriate. I also want to bring up at this juncture, and we should have brought this up at the beginning of the video, that at this point, we just added magical buildings. We're adding in new building grounds. So we're adding in new tiles a lot at this point. We did, after a couple games of, I think it was right around here, we played a couple games, and at the beginning of the game, you set up the cards, and you put the scoring card in the second of 5 piles, card piles, and you put the second scoring card in the 4th. But we found that the additional tiles shifted the end of the game significantly, and so you were having an early scoring, another early scoring, and then a big gap of time for the final scoring. So we moved it so that the first scoring card was coming out in the 3rd pile, the second one coming out in the 5th pile, and that worked a lot better.
And I will say, with Dirk playing with the dummy 3rd player, that meant that there, like, he was gonna stack of buildings. He got like 12
Yeah.
buildings.
If you did the scoring too early.
Yeah, well, I think that was what pushed us over the edge. Was
Yeah.
that one time he got like 12 buildings? Oh my gosh! And that's the other thing with these special buildings and with 2 players is sometimes the dummy player can get the good special buildings. When there were limited numbers, we actually would shuffle them back in and not give them to Dirk.
Be like, we're not giving him a magical building.
Yeah,
No
especially when we were kind of trying to play through the expansions and get through them all. Like, we wanted a chance to play with those and see what they were like. And Dirk, the jerk, was not going to get them because he doesn't have anything to offer.
Nope.
So
yeah, that was so I really like this expansion.
Yeah.
But sorry for the side notes, but I did want to note that because it did have a big impact on the game. You're going to, if you add these new tiles, you're going to want to shift when the scoring cards come out.
Our tower was full. Was like full to the brim.
It was.
At one point when we had the most tiles in there.
And if we had the Medina in there, we would have needed, there's a little tower extension. We would have needed it.
We definitely would have needed it.
Yeah. So, anyway.
But it's fun. It elongates the game.
Which we like.
It makes your Alhambra much bigger, which we like. It's a lot, which we love.
Look, we played through 39 expansions, plus a couple without them, and we still enjoy Alhambra. That's a good game.
That is a good game.
All right, so the next one is one we didn't play with because we didn't have it. This was also designed by Durkan, and it was major construction projects, and it was double tiles, which would have been really cool to play with. And interesting. And then you had 6 markers, and I don't even know how it worked because we didn't play with it. But you would bid on the major projects, it looks like. And so it was a bidding competition. So anyway, something that we just can't really talk about much of it. But next up we have the staff one, which we did talk about briefly or in passing. From Emmanuel Ornella, Palace Staff. I actually, this one was pretty interesting. You had a figure who was like your hirer, and they would walk around your Alhambra, and they would, as they passed buildings, they would staff those buildings. Now, here is the trick. You had a bag full of tokens of staff in the 6 building colors, and you drew 6 out, and you had 6 available at any time. But what that meant was you might be walking your guy around, but he's going through buildings that don't have a staff member available in the 6 that are out. That was the negative part.
Well,
because a lot of the time there are only 2 or 3 colors available.
I do want to point out that this is a negative point score, but we didn't
mind it.
We didn't mind it.
Yeah, we didn't mind it.
Maybe because it was interesting. I don't know. We didn't hate this one, but it is so you have to put the right colored staff on each building, and at the end of the game, each building that doesn't have staff on it is a negative point. We found that it was impossible to get staff on all your buildings, so it was competitive between the 2 of us. It wasn't like, Jane got all of hers covered and I had -20. We were both sort of in the same ballpark, but it was interesting. And it also gave you something to do with if you were stuck taking small bills, small dollar amounts.
Right.
Because the way it worked is if you took money cards that equaled less than 6, you got the difference between the amount you took and 6 to move your worker. Right, so
your hirer.
Your hirer, yeah. So if you took a 2, which I think is the lowest value, you could move 4 spaces. And so it gave a little bit of incentive to take the lower cards. Those were coming off quicker. Yeah. Again, it addresses one of those things that could be a bottleneck in the game. And I think that's why we liked it and why it played kind of smoothly is it at a time when there might be just small dollars amount or what often happens to me is I really need the building that costs blue money and there's no blue cards out and I don't need another yellow 2. I mean, I've got a lot of yellow cards, but that's all that out. Well, now I feel like taking that yellow 2 actually gets me something. Right. And so it takes something that could be a stress point in the game and it turns it into a win. And I think that's why this one played a little better than, it played okay, even though it was negative points at the end.
Yeah, it's also not comparative. Like the Medina expansion says, oh, Jane has less Medinas than Jen, so Jane gets negative points.
Right. So that's really player on player.
I actually found it kind of interesting playing with this, where if you're into min-maxing your points, because you're like, oh, I can go for this other building and buy it, or I can staff my people, or I can try to do both. But I probably got more points buying the building, or you were trying to figure that out. What's giving me more points?
Yeah. Which again, I mean, that's what makes games fun, right? It's that decision space. So yeah, I agree.
So that was interesting, I thought.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that was Emmanuel Ornella, Palace Staff, and I thought that was a good one. But at this point, with the we talked about the other buildings with
magical buildings,
the new building grounds. Had loose tiles on them. The magical buildings had loose tiles on them. These had loose tiles plus a guy walking around. So you end up with a lot of stuff on your board at this point, which does get a little bit overwhelming. Now, Emmanuel Ornella also designed the Orchards expansion. We could not play it because we do not have it. So apologize for that. This one looks really good. It's a little set collection game. I think this would have been fun. But it probably would have taken over the scoring a little bit. So, yeah, we didn't really want to do that. So next up, we had sort of an alternative to the characters expansion we talked about on the previous video. And this was the Traveling Craftsmen. And this worked a lot differently than the characters, but they were basically characters, these craftsmen who gave you extra powers. But these powers were available to you. They didn't have to bid for them.
Right, and you had access to all of them throughout the game.
Kind of. We changed how we played it.
Well, even so, we would have been trading them back and forth, so you would have gotten a shot at it.
It was a bit high maintenance of an expansion. So the way it worked is this first player got 3 of them, and everyone's got 2 of them. And then the first player would do their turn, then pass one face down to the left. And then that player had 2 face up and 1 face down. And they would do their turn using one of the face up ones and pass one face down to the left. And you just kept doing that. Which was fine in and of itself, except a lot of times you didn't need the craftsmen. So you wouldn't use them, and then you'd forget to pass them. And then,
suddenly Jen has 4 in front of her because she can't remember to pass them.
She was terrible about it. But it was just the whole thing, it was a bit high maintenance for what it was, but the powers were phenomenal. It was really cool powers.
Oh my God. Love.
You could take money cards up to 7 instead of 5, or you could swap the markets that buildings were on, like yellow to orange and orange to yellow, so that you could buy the one with exact change that you had exact change for at that color. You could
rearrange your Alhambra.
With some of them. Multiple of them did that in different ways.
Yeah.
And then there was one that I really liked that allowed you to use money in the market to buy a building in the market. That was actually pretty cool.
Yeah. This I love.
So they were pretty powerful.
Powers. Yeah. These were really fun. When we took these out, I was like, what happened? I felt like I had been
game,
I felt like I just had lost my superpowers. I will say that this is a great example too of another expansion that I don't know if I'd say clashes or contradicts, but has the same benefits as a couple of other expansions. So we were, for example, playing with the exchange cards where you can use blue for yellow and yellow for blue. And this just eliminated the need for those. Yeah. If you're playing with these and that one's in the game, you don't need those. And those cards would clog up our market. We ended up instituting a ticket to ride rule where if we had 3 or more exchange cards on the board, we just took them off because nobody was taking them because we had this other power that did it better.
We eventually dropped them.
Yeah. And so we eventually dropped them. And then, similarly to the character expansion.
We like that expansion, the currency exchange cards. So.
Yeah. And these not mitigated, but sort of you didn't necessarily need to do the characters with these because again, the special powers were comparable. I think this was my favorite.
Also, you just end up with too much to think about. I could do this. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do this.
Yeah. But I loved this. I think this was my favorite of those sort of mitigating expansions.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. I just didn't like how high maintenance it was, and it frustrated me more than her because I was better at like passing them, and I had to keep reminding her.
Oh, and so what we ended up doing was we put all 5 that were in the game in the center, well, off to the side, and you would just flip one. You would either flip the one you used, or if you didn't use one, you'd choose another one to flip. So we just had access to all of them at all times. And it
took away the whole passing thing.
Yeah. And I realized that it meant it was a little bit more powerful to each of us, but we just couldn't do the maintenance.
It worked that way, though. So that's an alternative way you could play as well. And play with how many you put out for people to play with. So next up, we have another one that adds tiles to the tiles to the tower. And this is the Bathhouse expansion. This one is from Klaus Jürgen Reed. And there's 6 of these Bathhouse tiles. And these were pretty cool.
I like these a lot.
These were neat. You scored based on they had like a building on each side, on each of the 4 sides. And if there's a white building on top, you could orient them any way you want. But if there was a white building on top after you placed it, and there's a white building, the next white building above it was 3 spaces away, you would get 3 points in each scoring.
This led to some funky Alhambras. I had one where it just had this really long center corridor. I scored a lot of points for it between my bastion and I think I had 2 of the bathhouses in it. But it was really interesting. I liked this a lot. It was fun. It made another element to think about where you place things and what you're taking. And
and I think it didn't clog up the market because you put it below the market. To make it purchasable. And they got purchased usually. So they were in fair high demand with us.
Yeah.
So I think we both liked them. And I think you used them a little more than I did, but more effectively than I did at least. But
yeah, I like to take them early, and then that just dictated how I built my Alhambra.
Yep. So these are fun. Really simple addition. They're all cost 8 to buy, and they worked pretty well. So anyway, that's the Bathhouses. Now the next one up got less use from us, but it was kind of similar in that they would go below the market and you could buy them for their value, which is 3, 4, or 5. And these are the wishing wells. These were a little more of a bet. Like it was like you placed a wishing well and it had an arrow on it facing one direction. And if in that direction you built the number of buildings that equaled the cost of the tile, you got that many points for it. So if it said 5 and it's to the left, if you built exactly 5 buildings to the left, you got 5 points. If you built 4, you got 0. If you built 6, you got 0. You had to build exactly 5 to the left. So I found the best way to use these was actually the opposite of the bathhouses. The bathhouses you wanted to buy early. These you wanted to buy late. Because you could see, like, I have 3 buildings that direction. It's capped off with a wall. Boom. And get your points. But I didn't like the betting aspect of it, that you were kind of like all or nothing. But they did kind of work. But I like the bathhouses better than the wishing wells.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're right. In some ways, it was similar that you could use these to maximize what you already built, or vice versa. But this one just did not catch my attention very well. I maybe built 2 of these. I think a lot of times, like, especially because I had, an Alhambra with 16 tiles across one row, like, it didn't work for me. I didn't have any that had the right number in a column or a row because of it. And I think that's probably true, that if you're favoring one, the other one might not be as valuable to you, the wishing well or the bathhouse.
The pros were they had no walls, so if you needed to fill little holes, they were good for that. They were cheaper. They were only 3, 4, or 5. So they're not bad. I think the fact that the bathhouses came out just before them, like if these were spread out a little more in the distribution of expansions, it was kind of like, I don't think we played this without the bathhouses in play. And I think on its own, it might have stood up better.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But, so that's something to know, because we did play everything in order. And that was just what we did. Because you got to do something.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. This is one that, you really want to do either or. They are a little bit contradictory to each other. And, It just doesn't. It just clogs up, takes up space.
So anyway, that's not a bad one, but not our favorite, Wishing Well. So next up, we have, you probably don't remember what it was called, but this is from I'm going to butcher these names. Marco Ruskowski and Marcel something. Suselbeck. Very good, dear. Fresh Colors was the name of this expansion. And in this one, this was kind of interesting. The idea, I have to say, like, I don't feel like the idea comes across that strongly in what you do. But the idea is that you're decorating your buildings. And so you would first have to, if you overpaid, so this is another thing that addressed it to overpaying. If you overpaid for a building, you could take either a project tile, which would be just a color of one of the 6 colored buildings. So that says, like, I'm going to decorate all my blue buildings, whatever. And then they all had requirements that you had to meet. Or you could have taken some of the requirements towards meeting them. And if you met the requirements, you got to flip the project tile and at that time score 2 points for every building that in your Alhambra of that color. So it was a nice little way to score. It wasn't overpowering or anything.
Yeah.
I liked it. It was probably a lot more components than it needed to be. Because there was kind of a lot of components to it, but
I feel like this also isn't sort of a nice standalone expansion.
Yeah.
This would be nice with just base Alhambra. When you put it in with everything else, it just sort of drowned it out.
Yeah, that's true too. It was kind of a lot going on for us, so
yeah.
But I think it was decent. I don't think it was the best expansion, either way, But I thought it was decent, and you got some points. It was a nice way to get points.
And it is another way to sort of maximize a strategy that you're already building. So I know the first game I didn't quite get how they scored, and so I was like scoring early, and they were barely any points. But the second game, I realized, okay, I'm getting a lot of brown buildings. I need to get the one that decorates brown.
Oh, we did this wrong. We did this wrong. You got points during every scoring for your decorated buildings, not just when you flipped it.
Oh.
Whoops.
Well,
that makes it even more powerful. But, I think it would
actually make it more interesting.
Make it more interesting, yeah. So, but the other thing I want to say about it was, now I forget, because I got distracted by that little tidbit. Okay, I forget what I was going to say. So what you were saying something, and then.
Well, I was saying that I played it wrong the first time because I thought it scored the way it actually scored. Then we decided mid-game that wasn't correct, and so then the next game I waited to do it until the end of the game when I had a bunch of tiles, and so I got a lot of points. But playing it the right way, it would make a lot of sense to get it early, and then you're, sort of building a little machine engine there.
One thing to be aware of when you do combo in a bunch of the expansions, and we ran into this, is that some of them did score just at the end of the game or just when they happened, and some of them scored every scoring. And then 2 things would happen. Number one, you would get to a scoring and be like, what else do we have to score?
Get the rule book.
What else are we scoring? Falconers, bathhouses. What are we scoring? Bastions. What are we scoring?
A player's aid would be nice for this, just telling you what things score when.
Yeah, based on what expansions you had in the game. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I think that would have helped a little bit with that. And some of these are really better, like this one, I think, on their own anyway. But I can't believe we played that wrong. That's too bad. All right.
It just would have been more powerful. And it would have changed the strategy a little bit.
There was a weird... No, there wasn't a weird thing. I don't know. It felt like there was something, but that's it. So that's a pretty good one. That was probably better as a standalone. So
yep. So the next one is also by Marco Ruskowski and Marcel Suselbeck. And this was the Palace Designers.
Yeah, and this one's a little simple. You basically have this one tile, and you put it on the edge of your tile, your starting tile, your fountain tile. And then if you built on that edge, you got 2 points. If you built on the side next to that edge, you got 1 point. If you built on the opposite side of that tile...
Wait, what?
What do you mean?
I scored that wrong too. I never gave myself any points for scoring on the side.
Yeah. 2 for on the one side, 1 on the sides, and then 0 on the other side. So it's simple. You could, honestly, there was a little tile you used. You could have used anything. I don't know why these were little arc tiles rather than figures. But it worked. I thought this one was okay.
I thought it was kind of neat. It didn't add a whole lot to the gameplay, but it was still kind of interesting because, again, you're trying to, you move it onto the new tile after you build a new tile. And so you are then going to, orient it and hope to build off of that tile next. And it sort of gave you a impetus to build in one direction and to not block that off. And so I didn't close my wall with my palace designer until almost the very last turn. I think I maybe actually didn't even close it because I was leaving it open for him to keep moving.
Yeah, and there was one thing that wasn't clear in the rules. If you were to build a tile, so I guess it doesn't matter. I think but if you were to buy multiple buildings on a turn, you can place one building, which would be right next to him, and then you're supposed to place them. But do you wait until you place all your buildings to place them, or can you place them and then build a building next to them? It seems like that made no sense, so we did it after we placed all our buildings. But that's probably the logical way to go. But I was going to say something about the last expansion, the Fresh Colors one, that there was a gap in the rules too, because it triggered when you overpaid, but it wasn't clear that if you were paying another expansion like the exchange currency track, whatever it was called, we talked about it a little bit ago, or the coins expansion, could you do both?
Right.
Could you get change and do this? So we had to sort of house rule it, and we house ruled it that you could only do one thing.
Yeah.
One benefit.
And I think that's true for a lot of the expansions is the rules don't necessarily cover what happens if you're playing this with another expansion.
But they do in some cases. It's so, some of them are super thorough. They're like, if you're playing with the blah, blah, blah expansion, do this. Why is it? It was just so, I don't know. I just felt inconsistent in terms of, I know a rule book like this is hard to do. So I'm not being I don't mean to be overly critical, but it was a little frustrating that sometimes there were these gaps in knowledge. So.
Yep.
All right, next up we have adding more components on top of the tiles. We have the Alhambra Zoo.
Yep.
And this is when you bought a green building. Well, first off, when you put a green building on the market, you put 2 animals on it. And then if you bought that, you got to add those animals to the Alhambra with the building. But you only scored those animals if you had multiple of the same one type in a garden, green building. So you'd have to move them, and there was a way to move them, and you had to spend money, right? I believe you had to spend money to move the animals.
Yes.
At the end of your turn. And but if you did that, then if you had 3 owls in the same green building, you got 3 points every scoring.
Yep.
I kind of like this one, but it was not very high scoring. So it wasn't super lucrative.
I have mixed feelings about this one because I do love it. I love the animals. I wanted lots of animals in my Alhambra, but you got them all.
Yeah, that happened a couple times because it creates a huge competition for the green buildings. And if you're just happen to be lucky enough to get to them first, then the other person's shut out of it. And it also just created an imbalance in that the green buildings are now super attractive compared to other buildings.
Yeah.
And that created a bit of imbalance, I think. And
it definitely did. It changed the competition for them, like you said, and the valuation of them. And a lot of the other expansions that kind of change how you value the buildings changed across the board. But this just changed for green. So suddenly green is this souped up tile and none of the other ones are. And so it made the competition for those really, really strong. And I never got more than 1 or 2 green tiles while we played with it.
Yeah, so this was a little bit of a mixed bag, but it was decent. And I do think this is another one that's probably better a standalone or something because it has quite a bit going on with it. And if you mix it with the staff, you end up with a bunch of stuff on your
Oh my gosh, so much stuff.
Alhambra, and it gets a little bit crazy. But I don't know.
But there's animals, and
yeah, who doesn't like animals? That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. Now the next one.
Yep, from Michael.
Yeah, we didn't
Reineck.
say that the previous one was from Michael. Shocked. Yeah. So the next one is from Michael Reineck, and it's Gates Without End. So again, this is another one where if you bought brown buildings in this case, it triggered this expansion. I kind of like this expansion.
I love this one actually, which
because
sounds contradictory considering what I just said about green, but I'll tell you why.
yeah, I mean, well, go ahead.
Well, because what it does is when you buy the brown building, right, you there's this, like, what is it, octagon, pentagon, hexagon?
It's a hexagon.
Hexagon. You got a hexagon with a hole in the middle of it, and it's like a table, right? And there's seats around the table.
There's no hole. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Each one is
yeah.
Each seat corresponds to a player color, and then you take another hexagon and you put it in there, you place it in there, and it gives you a reward based on like what is at your seat. But so does the other players. They also get a reward. So I don't care if I got the brown building or you got the brown building. I get something out of it. Now it's better when I get to choose my own reward, but I still got something when you got a brown building. So and the rewards are they're not huge, but they're nice. They're nice little additions.
Some of them were better than others. Some of them gave you little half buildings. So you could get like an extra half blue building or an extra half purple building, which would help break ties. Sometimes it lets you do a design or it lets you, there was occasionally you'd get a bonus from this and you couldn't use it, that it wasn't useful.
Yeah, there was one that I did not like that you could pay 14 money. And I think it was any currency, which was the advantage, but you could pay 14 money for a tile, any tile. But it's like way overpaying. And I don't know, honestly, I swear to God, we're playing different games because Jane always has like 200 money cards and I've got 2, which is why she gets all the green buildings. I never have lots of money cards. You
spend them too fast.
I spend them too fast. So 14 money cards was never happening.
I do it similar to how I do Ticket to Ride. I build up my hand and then spend it down. So
whatever.
I don't know. It works. So. All right, so yeah, you can get extra wall pieces. So there's cool little plaza tiles. It's cool.
Oh yeah, the plaza tiles actually. So this worked really well with the expansion that with the bastions and with the one that gave you points, the bathhouses for how many away the white ones, because the plaza tiles are nothing. They're just a square, no wall building.
Right.
You just plop it in your Alhambra, but that creates those long.
Yep.
That's why I had that wall of like 16 tiles that one game.
Yeah, so that was cool. We like things that give us rewards, of course. Who doesn't? So we like that one. All right, next up we have from Mike Elliott, Buildings of Power. This one was decent. This was interesting. It came with a bunch of dice that were white, black, and red. And what it did is it replaced a bunch of the tiles in the game with tiles that had powers on them. And so they would give you things like, you can score your second wall, but you have to roll this red die. And whatever you get, that's how many wall lengths you can score for on your second longest wall. So that was, kind of cool. But as you can imagine, because it was dice dependent, it was a little bit luck dependent. And I know Jen had bad luck. There was one that you rolled a white die and it would give you that many 1 coin discounts on buying buildings. Really cool, right? But she kept rolling ones.
It was awful. Just like over and over and over again, just one.
We had to throw pity on her and be like, roll again.
I know.
Roll again.
I know. I appreciate it, dear. It was so crushing. And then on the wall length one, was neat about that is it stacked. So I got 2 of those in one game. And I mean, one of the dice I rolled was a 2 because, go figure. But the other one was a 5. So I ended up with 7 length wall, which obviously is more than 6. But you could end up with a whole 12 length wall available for scoring. And that worked really well early in the game before I had my mega wall. So that gave me early points.
Yeah, and what was nice about that too was if you had that second wall, longest wall, there was not that pressure to connect your two long pieces of wall, which there kind of is normally to try to create a super wall. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Give you a lot of flex.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, that was a good one. Buildings of Power, I thought was good. Just, it gave us powers. Of course, we liked it. All right, next up, Rudiger Dorn.
Yes, extensions.
Designed extensions. I did like this one. It was a little bit weird. I think this one would work a little better standalone, just because it was a lot going on. But what it did is it allowed you to spend like any three, not any three, but certain combinations of 3 money cards. And for those certain combinations of 3 money cards, you could get a high value building of different colors. And if you did it, if you spent actually equal to or less than the value of the building, you got to go again, as if you paid exact change, which was interesting. The amount of money you actually spent didn't matter, so you could use a couple 2s and a 1. It was just the color of the currencies that mattered. And I should say that you didn't. You got these extensions, and you would place them over existing buildings. Right. And what they would do is they would count as another building, even though they're not. Right. So, but it would give you another. It's a good way to overcome Dirk again. Like, Dirk is tough because he has 3 red buildings, but I got an extension, so I have 4.
Yeah, and I do like this one and a couple of the other ones that increase the number of buildings of each color, and with some variability, because it lets you compete a little more effectively for those high value buildings, and especially in a 3-player game or when you've got Dirk, it gives you that edge in overcoming. Yeah, so I like that.
No, that's a good one. I thought that was a good one, but I thought with a lot going on, it wasn't great because it's just like, I don't know, it's a little involved, I guess, but it would be better with less going on.
Yeah, and especially because
certain expansions were okay to tack on,
yeah,
but other ones didn't work as well.
I like this, I think, especially with the 2-player, because Dirk is not competing for these buildings. And so, again, a way to overcome the dummy player.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. We're getting there. We're getting to the end. Yeah. So next we have one of our favorite designers,
Stefan Feld, with the Handyman expansion.
I tell you, at first I did not like this one.
Really?
But after we started playing, we were playing it for a while,
we started to get the hang of it.
We figured out how to use it, and it was fun.
It was so much fun.
It's just kind of silly. Like, you had 3 blue dice, and you could still take money. You had to decide at the beginning of your turn. The only thing you could do at the same turn as you did this expansion was roll dice.
Take money and
roll dice. So if you did do this, so then you would and you had 8 handyman tokens. And you could use them in 2 ways. And you would roll a die, and if I rolled a 5, and there was a 5 tile in the market, I could put one of my handymen on that market space, and from then on, I could spend 1 more or 1 less than the building, get it for exact change, as if I was buying it for exact change. So that was very handy. Man. And then, or you could, if you had a building, if you rolled a 5, if you had a building in your Alhambra that was a 5, you could put a handyman on your building on the other side up, and you would get 1 point in every scoring for that handyman.
For every contiguous.
Yeah, it was a contiguous,
in your
orthogonally adjacent handyman.
Yeah.
But you only had up to 8, so you could never get too much that way.
Right. This was fun. Once we figured this out, we're like, I'm going to roll the dice because I'm just taking money. And
which you do sometimes anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it encouraged that, and it made those turns where all you can do is take money. It made them feel so much more satisfying, because it also lessened the stake of getting the right dice roll. Yep. So if I was trying to get a 12, I'd take money 3 turns in a row and try rolling and getting my 12. Yep. And it was fun. Oh, we had so much fun with this. I don't know. I think it made something that sometimes feels like maintenance or less than satisfying in terms of a turn, and made it exciting, like a gamble. Like, what are we going to get? It was really good.
Because there are those turns where you just don't know how much you can do, but take money. And if you're doing that, you get to roll the dice. And it's just fun. It makes it fun. It just adds to it. So, I will say with this one, I think you could play this with a lot of things going on or standalone. Either way, it works just fine. It's very luck heavy, but because of how it works, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
makes it more interesting, I think, having it be that luck heavy. It just was so much fun.
So next up, we have the Personal Building Market from Luis David Peliquin. We did not play this one. The reason we didn't play it was because we didn't think we'd use it, to be honest. What it is you could buy a building and you didn't use a reserve board anymore. Now, instead, if you had a building you didn't want to put into your Alhambra directly, you had your own personal market with the blue, yellow, orange, and green currencies. And you'd have to put the building under one of those currencies. And then somebody could buy it away from you. We were never going to do that to each other.
Nope.
It wasn't going to happen. Now, you'd get the money from that buy, but it would kind of defeat the point of buying it in the first place. And I don't know.
There was nothing about this. It would be like pulling teeth to get us to use this feature, and we would not have enjoyed it, because we're just not gonna do that. Like you said, we're not gonna do that to each other.
We're not gonna happen.
I'm not gonna undermine her game. Like, there are times where I reach for a towel and she's like, oh, and I'm like, oh no, I won't take it. I can take the other one. It doesn't matter to me. Like, we're care bearers. I want my Alhambra to be best, and push comes to shove, if I really need it, I will take it, but I'm not going to undermine her for the fun of undermining her. That is not fun to me. And same way for you.
Yeah, it wasn't going to work for us. I think maybe in a 4-player game, it might be more, add to a sort of chaotic element that could be interesting, but
I'd be so annoyed if somebody bought something off my personal reserve board. I mean, I would be salty. I would want to leave the game.
Yeah, that could happen.
It would piss me off.
Table flip.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Time to get a new table.
So next up is...
Oh, is that what we have to get a new table?
No, that's not what we need to do.
All of a sudden, tables start flipping like crazy.
No. All right. Next up, we have Frank Sander, who did the Treasures expansion.
Yep. We like this one. Mm-hmm. So, what did this one do?
I don't remember.
I remember liking it. What? Oh yeah, this was great. So you had.
Oh, this was so good.
You had you had 5 tiles valued from 1 to 5, and they were in your color, and you got to use them once per game each. And they were just, you got points if you didn't use them, but they were just great to use because it would give you like a 1 discount, a 2 discount, a 3 discount on a building at any time, up to 5. Good. I mean, just use them. You get more buildings. I mean, it just made sense to use them. Yeah. So you could also save them for points, but we used them. So
right out the door.
Yep.
Yeah, we really enjoyed this one. It sort of accelerated the pace of getting the buildings. We were able to do more because it took us less money. I think this was the game where we actually only barely got through the money pile. Yep. Normally we go way through the money pile, but because of this, it actually extended how long it took us to get through it because we needed less actual money to get the buildings. This was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed this one. Again, just a little tweak to it, but it made it so much easier to get the building you want at the exact change, which let you do another action, and that's always the objective.
This is one of those you could mix and match with any combination of expansions. Really easy to incorporate. So I would say there's no issues with using this with any other expansions.
Yeah, and this is a great example of something that just lets you do a little more. That's it. Doesn't change anything fundamentally, doesn't change scoring or give you any special powers, really. It just lets you do a little bit more, and we like things that let us do a little bit more.
Yes, we do. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here with the Caliph's guidelines. And we only played with this once, but it was, they're basically goal tiles. They're called mission tiles, but this is from Stefan Schiltz. And they were kind of cool. It's kind of like,
fun,
two buildings of the same type left next to each other, and you get 3 points for each pair of them. And then you 3 buildings in a row or something. You'd get
the second longest wall scored. So this was the one we played with the Powers buildings.
Yes.
And so at one point I was scoring my first, second, and third. There are no instructions on what to do with this if you're playing with the Powers buildings, but we decided to just have it be
your third
wall, right? But these were fun. I really like that sort of extra scoring boost. We got a lot of points from this. I forget what was the other one that we played with that gave us a lot of points. The 2x2 grid.
Yeah.
This gave you 2 points for each 2x2 grid, and a tile could belong to more than one. So we just ended up with a very
square.
This was really fun. I really enjoyed this one. Again, it sort of dictated how you played your tiles and where you placed them, but really satisfying. Just loved this.
Yep. And that's it, folks.
That's about as tired as we were. Yeah.
I think we're done. Alhambra, you've been played. Alhambra.
Well, as you said at the beginning, as Jane said at the beginning, we still love Alhambra.
Yep.
We played a lot of Alhambra. A lot. And it's just such a good game.
It's a really good base
really
game.
Good game. Yeah, really good base game. And a lot of these expansions just are really amazing additions to it. I think, if you have the chance, if you have the Mega Box, definitely play through, or, pick some of your favorites that sound good and play with them. Definitely get them into play. And if not, I don't know if you can pick these up individually or not, but if you get a chance, I hope they put them on BGA. I'd like to see that.
That'd be cool. Yeah, you can play them on BGA. That'd be cool. Yeah, but that's it, folks.
That's it.
We're done with coverage of Alhambra. I hope you enjoyed these videos. I hope you, get something from them.
Yeah. Let us know if you've played any of the expansions. Let us know if you have the Mega Box and haven't played. I'm curious to hear what other folks thought of the different expansions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember,
every day that you game
is a holiday. Bye.